Okay, guys, guess what? I think I've officially recorded this, or I'm starting to record this. Okay, so let me just go back into Blue Jeans one last time. I want to just check the chat window. Everybody, can everybody hear me? We're going to do two things new for this quarter, and I'm not a person that likes to try new things. You know, you young kids, you guys got your cell phones and your VHS recorders and rock and roll music. I'm not into that. I like old stuff. So this is real new for me, and so it's unfamiliar, and of course, therefore, I hate it. But we're going to try to use Blue Jeans this quarter, and the other thing we're going to do is Kegel competitions. So those are the two new things we're going to try this quarter, and I predict we're going to have a real fun time of it. So let's before we get started, does anybody have any questions? I'm going to check the chat window real fast. And everybody, I'm guessing at this point, everybody can hear me just fine, right? Who's all on the phone? Give me some people who actually have phones. I see we have Terry, you've got a phone, don't you, Terry? And Liz, I know you have a phone. Or well, let me hear if somebody can talk for me real quick before we get started. Say something. Somebody say something.
Hello.
Who's that?
Terry speaking.
Terry, I'm gonna give you a very important position of responsibility tonight. You're going to be teacher's helper, okay?
Oh no.
It's kind of like that movie Animal House where Flounder gets promoted to be the pledge representative to the food committee, and he's like, what do I have to do? So anyways, boy, you guys got to rent that movie because otherwise you're not going to get my jokes. Okay, so all you have to do is keep an eye on the chat window, and if anybody types something while I'm talking, interrupt me and say, oh, somebody has a question, and then I'm gonna then I can answer it. Okay? Can you do that for me, Terry?
Okay, it's kind of hard, but I'll try.
Well, thank you so very much. Okay, so everyone, welcome to Predict 411, and we're doing something, even a third new thing this quarter. We're starting the sync session before the quarter even begins, but that's because my kids' Easter vacation this year is all next week. Every one of my kids is on Easter break at the same time. So we've decided to do something crazy. And my wife says, I said, hey, sweetheart, you want to, pile all the kids in a car and drive 8 hours to Tennessee and walk around the Smoky Mountains and have the kids cramped up in a minivan for 8 or 9 hours? And she says, you got a court order? And I said, funny you should mention that. So that's why we're going down there. So because of that, we're not going to, the sync sessions in the Smoky Mountains wouldn't be that good, so we're gonna do it now as opposed to having me let you guys wait a week. I want you to get started early on everything. So anyways, welcome to Predict 411, and my name is Don Wedding, and feel free to call me Don. If some students don't feel comfortable with that, so call me whatever you want. I'm married, so I've been called a lot of things. But again, I'm real informal, so Don is perfectly fine if you feel comfortable with that. Okay, so let's talk about the class. I'm going to try to get you in and out of this real fast. I guess the best way to get started is let's just see real quick if anybody has any questions. And if not, I'm going to dive into everything you need to know about this class. So anybody just type something in the chat window or else jump on the line.
I have a basic question about the Adobe Connect recorded session.
Okay.
I was trying to look at one that you had in the list, and I can't get logged in. So I'm wondering, who do I call or what do I do, or does somebody have the password to be able to log into those?
Sometimes your password needs to be reset. And let me see, does anybody off the top of their head know? I think you have to go through the help desk, and let me see if I can give it to you. North, I think that the help desk is 847-491-HELP. Yeah, you have to use your Adobe login. Do you have an Adobe? Well, yeah, JC has mentioned that you might have to go through the help desk and let them reset your password. Does that answer your question?
Okay, I'll try back. I tried calling them yesterday and today, and they said they were closed both days. Both times when I called. But maybe they'll be open.
You know why? Because the quarter hasn't even started yet. Well, the nice thing is we're not going to be using. That's why we're switching over to Adobe Connect, because the last 2 or 3 quarters I've had nothing but trouble with Adobe Connect. So I'm trying something new. Oh, yeah. Somebody's given the email address of William Guth. He is my go-to guy. Every time I have something, a problem, William Guth magically makes the problem go away. So I think if you send him an email, he'll do that. Do you see in the chat window that Padmini has given the email of William Guth?
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
So there you go. So, but it would be worth resolving that problem, because I have some old sync sessions that I walk through the homework problems, and some of the students think they're very useful. So anyways, did anybody else have any questions? And if not, we're going to get started. Okay, then let's get started. Okay, I'm going to open up the course shell for you right here. So this is the course shell for distance learning, section 55. I've got 2 sections. I've got section 55, and I've also got section 58. I try to keep the 2 classes, everything the same. The only difference here is the discussion boards. I haven't figured out a way to synchronize those things, but usually I get the same questions in both. And I have a TA for both sections. So Raymond Anden is my TA for section 55, and Brian Hancock is my TA for section 58. They both patrol both discussion boards, but they kind of each have their own little area. But, Raymond will mostly hang around in section 55, and Brian will mostly hang out in 58, but they both kind of check out each other's they help each other out. So both of those guys have been my TAs for forever. They're really good. Some quarters I get students who make a lot of use of them. I get other quarters where those guys are just sitting there collecting moss. Moss is growing on them. They're there to help you. They'll help you with code. They'll help you get your stuff set up. They can answer statistical questions. If you need to get a hold of me and you can't, and you say, hey, I need an extension, or I need this or this, whatever they say, I back them up, because they have my complete confidence. They probably wouldn't appreciate a phone call on a Sunday night at 3 in the morning, asking for an extension, but that's usually you should be calling me for that. But okay, anyways, let's talk about the class here. This is the course shell that we have here, and the course is going to be broken down into really 3 units. The first unit here is we're going to review linear regression, and I don't really want to review linear regression. What I want to do is I want to take you guys into actually building really big models with very big data sets with missing values and all that fun stuff. And this is going to be data that's going to fight back. So this is going to be stuff that you're going to face in the real world. We're going to start with unit 1 will be linear regression. Then unit 2 is going to be logistic regression. Unit 3 will be Poisson. And then unit 4 is really just a quick overview of survival analysis. But it's just a 1-week introduction to that, just so you understand the theory. But most of the work will be in these 3 areas. Let me go through our course shell real quick. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is let's walk through the general information. Okay, course overview. They made me put this in here, and it just sort of talks about the class, but you probably will never look at that after today. what you really want to do is come on down here to the downloads. This is where things really start to get useful. The first thing is we have the syllabus. Let's open this guy up first. So let's open up the syllabus, and here it is. In fact, let's download this guy, or let's open him up with Adobe Connect. There it is. Can you guys see my screen real well? Okay. So here it is. This is about everything you're going to need to know right off the bat. Okay, this is me. Again, call me Don. Now, I teach at Northwestern part-time, but my day job is I work at SAS. So SAS is my day job, and and this will be my email for SAS. Now, I work out of my house, and this is my work office in the basement of my house, and this is my cell phone. So if you want to get a hold of me, here's how you're going to want to do it. I would prefer post something to the discussion board for no other reason than I get the same question 500 times, and if you post it one place, I can answer it. I'll usually answer it fast, and so will Raymond and Brian. We'll get to it real fast and answer the question, and that way everybody can get the benefit of it. But sometimes, you just want an instant answer. You don't want to wait a day to get an answer, and I understand that, okay? I'm impatient as well. So you can also get a hold of me with email. Now, if you email me, I would recommend emailing here and also emailing to Northwestern. Why? Because a lot of times I have to travel. In my job, they put me on the road, and they do it at a moment's notice. So all of a sudden, I'm in New York City or something like that. And when I'm in New York, it's hard for me to get access to my Northwestern email. So I only have my cell phone with me. So if you send it to both of these, what I would prefer you to do is this. Send the email to here, and then send me an email to SAS that says, hey, Don, I sent something to Northwestern. And then I'll know to go out there and look. It's just because if you send it to here, what happens is I get so many emails from customers and students that it might accidentally get marked as read, and then what happens is I miss your email. So if you just give me a heads up, I can know to go out there and look for this. And then when I'm at home, I always check this. So this is one of these things where I'm on the road, I have to deliberately go looking. Now also, this is my office phone number right here. And when I'm at home, you guys can call me anytime you want. I would prefer that you don't call me at Sunday at 3 in the morning. However, if you do and I answer the phone, you're fine. So you don't have to worry like, gosh, it's a weekend. Should I call Don or not? My thought is this. If I am able to answer the phone call, like I'm not like, I don't know, the grill is on fire or something like that, whatever, there's some home emergency. If I can't answer the phone, I won't, and I'll just let it go to voicemail, or I might not be home. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But if you say, well, gosh, should I call? My thought is this. If it's an emergency call at 3 in the morning on a Sunday, and my thought is this, if it's important enough to you to call me up on the phone, then it's important for me. So I don't want you guys to ever worry. I'd rather have you call me if you got a problem. Also, this is my cell phone number, and I always have my cell phone with me when I'm on the road. If you call me, very likely I'll look down there and I'll see some strange number, and I'll say, well, that's probably a student. If I'm with a customer, I can't answer it, but I'll call you back as soon as I can. So I guess the punchline is call me whenever you want to, but please use a little bit of common sense. But don't ever worry. I'm never going to yell at you for calling me at Sunday at 3, but it's never happened, and I'm hoping it doesn't, but if it does, I'm okay with that. Any questions so far? Terry, is anybody typing any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. Are you following everything I'm saying, Terry, or have I rambled?
I'm catching on to what you're saying. I've got the gist of how to communicate with you so far.
Okay, great. I like to beat a horse into the ground. So, if I start rambling, your other job, Terry, is to say, Don, let's move this along, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so here's the textbook. Now, the textbook is written by Hoffman. Now, I get students who love the textbook and hate the textbook, blah, blah, blah. This is how I chose this textbook. I wanted to have a textbook just so you guys can get some general theory on generalized linear models, okay? That's what I wanted. Now, I found that there was books that were so heavily into the derivations with calculus and all this other stuff in there. And I thought, well, that's not really appropriate for this class. This isn't a math degree. And then the other one was like, Sesame Street level, which was pointless. So this I found to be a happy medium of a little bit of theory and a little bit of practicality. Now, in reality, you can probably, and also the other thing is I was trying to get you guys to buy a cheap book because you know what? You guys spend enough money on this. I didn't want you to have to spend $400 on a textbook. So this book was pretty cheap. Now you're going to notice that there's a couple of versions of this book floating around, okay? Like for example, if you get the special, double secret probation version from the bookstore, you're like, it's sold at a discount. Well, this is what happened was Pearson Publishing, when we selected this as the book, they said, well, if you create a special version just for your class with some custom material, we can discount it. So I said, okay. So what I did was I rammed a copy of my syllabus in there. And so it's the exact same book, but it's just got an extra page like a syllabus, and you guys can pay less money for it. So that's why if you see there's only one version of this book, but you might see that it's got all sorts of different weird things like, this is the Northwestern version, or this is this. It's all the same, okay? But I was just trying to keep your prices down. Now, I have students who don't even buy the textbook. Now, I think the textbook is kind of good, and you can learn some good theory. And also, I assign some reading, and then I have some quizzes. And it can be really helpful for the quizzes. But again, I have students who love the book. Some students don't like the book. Some students don't buy the book. So it's up to you. You decide what is your best learning experience. Also, this course is taught with SAS, okay? That's not because I work at SAS. It's because that's what they want. They wanted this course to be taught in the SAS programming language. And so SAS is a really good language, and I think you're going to grow to like it. But there's going to be no textbook. Now, I happen to recommend this book right here as the little book of SAS is sort of the classic book that everybody uses. It's a really nice book for SAS syntax. It's on the 5th edition right now, but my personal opinion is go out on eBay and get like edition number 1 for like $3, and it's just the same. It's really a good book, and you can get it cheap. I like this. But again, some students don't care for this book. That's fine. Another source of SAS coding, Google it. I'm telling you, there's a lot of code out there. So let's talk a little bit more about the class. The class is designed this way. You got 1,000 points. As soon as you get 930 points, you got an A, okay? So this is how it's, now if you get 929 points, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get this grade right here. And the reason why I'm doing this is I don't get any pleasure by doing that, because you'll notice that I have a lot of bonus points in this class. And if you can't get 930, now I don't give you bonus points for just doing nothing. You got to earn them, okay? But it's one of those things where as the course goes on, the bonus work, if let's say that, for example, I'll give you bonus points if you recreate the assignment, you do it in SAS, and then I say, oh, by the way, if you do the exact same thing in R, I'll give you 20 points. And if you use some decision trees, I'll give you another 20 points. And those 20 points here and there start racking up. And the point is, as soon as you do it, if you did it for the first homework, then doing it for the second and third homework is as easy as falling in love. You're like, whoa, I just racked up 100 points for doing nothing. The sooner you start doing that stuff, the better. If you're trying to do that at the end, then it's not so easy. So I'm just saying it's one of those things where You have a lot of opportunity for bonus work in this class. It's not easy, but once you do it, it starts to really accumulate very fast. So let's see, the quizzes are just multiple choice quizzes on Canvas. And you'll notice that I say there's 250 possible points, but in reality, I've got like 300 points worth of 300 points. So you can earn more than 250 points on the quizzes. I have students who go through and they don't even take the quizzes, and then they get mad at me because they didn't get the grade they want. And I'm looking at all these undone quizzes. You're better off to do the quizzes when the quarter, like for example, the Unit 1 quizzes, you can take them the last day of the class if you want, but I recommend doing them around Unit 1 because this material is fresh in your mind. Waiting 8 weeks from now is not going to be easy for you. Let's see here. I don't require any discussion boards. I have a lot of discussion boards out there, and you can participate or not. I find that the students who are constantly on the discussion boards traditionally do well in the class. The people who I don't even know, I never hear from them except for when an assignment comes in. The less engaged you are in the class, the worse you do. The more engaged, the better you do. That's just empirical observation from a long time on here. So, Terry, does anybody have any questions so far about the grading of the course?
No questions yet.
How are you doing, Terry? Is this all coming clear to you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let's see if there's any other stuff. The rest of this stuff is just boilerplate that they make me dump in here. Like attendance policies, and please be nice on the discussion boards. Common sense things that I suspect you guys already know. Let's go down here real quick. Okay, like I said, this is going to be Unit 1 will be advanced versions of linear regression. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But you got 3 weeks. Now, your homework for Unit 1 will be due Whoops. I didn't update the syllabus, did I? Huh. This is already passed, isn't it?
Yes, I guess we're behind.
Yes, we are. You guys, what's wrong with you guys? I thought for sure I updated this thing. I have a feeling I updated it and then uploaded an old version. I'm going to have to update this for you guys. I apologize. Okay, well, anyways, 3 weeks from now, 3 weeks from Sunday is when homework number 1 will be due. What will happen is I would recommend getting a start on this like now. Students who wait until the Friday before it's due, this is not that kind of project. This is one of these projects that it takes some time to do. Watch the old sync sessions that I've provided. I kept some of my old recordings. What I do is I actually grab the data set that you have and I start solving it for you. I say, well, this is how I would solve this problem. Now, it's not the best solution, but I show you kind of how to do it. Now, the other thing that we're going to do in this class is we're going to submit the assignment in Kaggle. Does anybody here familiar with using Kaggle at this point? Has anyone even heard of Kaggle?
Yes.
We've got a lot of yeses on that. Great. So we're going to try submitting that way so you guys can get feedback if your model is any good or not. We'll talk a little bit about that in real fast, but just trying to I got to update this, so I'm going to write down this right now. Well, I'll remember. Okay, so anyways, this is the syllabus right here, and let's go to the next piece right here. Okay, so that's the syllabus. Now over here, I've got messages in a bottle. Has anybody taken a look at that yet?
Yes,
okay.
I read them.
Okay, yeah, download some of these things because, I mean, basically, and you're going to do this too. At the end of the quarter, I say, write a note to the students that are coming up. And so I've got notes in here from students from, a couple of years ago. I got them from last quarter. Some of them, they put something funny in there. Sometimes they give you some good advice, whatever. It's just a nice way to, sometimes there's some good information in there. So, I would recommend downloading those things and taking a few minutes and reading it. Now, here's another thing. Now, this is something, if you're falling asleep, I want you to wake up, because this thing right here, you see template for the project write-up. Let's click on that real fast. And what I'm doing is I'm showing you how to write a good write-up for the assignment. So our first project is going to be the Moneyball, where you got some baseball data and you're going to have to predict how many wins a team has. And it's got missing values in there and outliers and all sorts of weird stuff. So when you're done, you're going to be doing a very quick write-up. Now, this isn't going to be a write-up like for an academic institution. What I want you to do is write this up like a real world write-up. And that's going to be a little different. I don't want you to crawl around in the weeds with lots of statistics. I want you to think of me as like George Steinbrenner, and he's the guy who owns the New York Yankees, okay? And he doesn't care about statistics. Now, he's not an idiot because he owns the New York Yankees, so he's obviously rich and he's smart, but he doesn't understand statistics. So you're going to have to explain what you're doing so that this guy can understand it. So this is what I want you to do. So I'm saying do this. Like, first of all, put your document in PDF format. It's unprofessional to give something as a Microsoft Word document to like a CEO. It's like wearing tennis shoes to an interview. You just don't do it. So, give me a PDF document. I want you to, to give me like your charts and your graphs, and I'll sort of go through this real quick. I want you to put it in there and then discuss it. Don't pack it all in there in an appendix and say, go to refer to appendix 6, 30 pages from here. Think of it this way. Is George Steinbrenner going to fire you? Remember, he was the guy who fired everybody whenever they just looked at him funny. So is George Steinbrenner going to fire you for doing it? If it is, don't do it, because I'm going to take off points. So I want this thing to be written for an executive to read it. I want an introduction. This is a bad introduction. So I'm giving you exactly what to do and what not to do. This would be a bad introduction. The purpose of this report is to analyze baseball data. Tell me why you're doing it. This is just something real simple, but and you know what? I tell you, do this, and I'm still going to get students who give me this. So give me a decent introduction. Then the other thing that I want you to do is when you're giving me results, like a graph, here's a graph, okay? Now, this is like a residual error. Now, I'm not a big fan of this particularly. How last quarter you learned about graphing your predicted values versus your residuals and looking for patterns. I'm not a big fan of doing that. And in fact, in the real world, they don't do that. But I'm giving this as an example. If you do include a diagram like this into your write-up, tell me about it. Like right here, this is a good example of what to do with a diagram. This is a bad example. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you pros and cons. Does anybody remember Goofus and Gallant? Terry, do you know who Goofus and Gallant are?
No.
Oh my gosh, I'm feeling old. When you were a kid, you went to the dentist office and they had Highlights magazine, and then they would have Goofus and Gallant were in there, and Goofus would run with scissors and Gallant would walk with the scissors, and Goofus would chew with his mouth open and Gallant wouldn't. Okay, well, Gallant writes this kind of document on his graph, and Goofus does this. Goofus was the bad kid. Do you know who they were now, Terry?
No.
Does anyone on this phone know who Goofus and Gallant is? Or is the 50-year-old guy really going to feel old now? Somebody chatted. What did they say, Terry?
We've got a sorry, no, and a yes.
Okay. So the guy who said yes,
MY.
MY.
Matthew,
MY.
yes.
Mr. MY, could you, I think it was Mark Young or Mike Young, could you please confirm to everyone that that's a funny reference? Is he confirming it, Terry?
Not yet. Oh, he's got a perfect. Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, there you go. So you guys don't have to take my word for it that was funny. It was, okay? Because a fellow student just confirmed it. So anyways, so let's move on. So you guys see what to do. Terry, you see what to do with graphs. If you're going to put a graph in there, describe it. Now, one thing I don't want you to do is I don't want you to dump all your SAS output into your write-up and then say, here you go. I want you to be very careful about what, pull out exactly what you think you want to put in there. If George Steinbrenner is your boss, if you happen to like these residual plots, I don't like them, okay? But you know what? You might like them and I might not, but that's fine because at this point, you're going to have to start making your own decisions on what you think is important. Whatever, if you don't want to put it in there, that's fine. I will respect your opinion. You better put something in there and explain to me why this is a good model. But if you do want to put it in there, that's fine too. But you got to make up your own decision. But don't dump a ton of stuff in there. Be very careful of what you put in and put some thought into it. Okay, the next thing you do is, incidentally, for everybody in the class, I made these numbers up. So don't think that your model is going to look like this. If they don't look like this, that's good because these are random numbers, okay? But now, when you have an equation, I want you to, this is a good thing to do here. So you might say, look, every time the guy gets a base hit, for every base hit, the number of wins increases by 3. And every time he has a home run, the number of wins increases by 5. Or, like I said, these are made up numbers. So you could say, so you would explain this and you would say, look, this formula makes perfect sense because the people who get lots of base hits seem to win more games, okay? But you can also say, look, George Steinbrenner, you'll notice that when you, let me think here. I'm just trying to think here. Something didn't make sense. Hits into double plays. Oh, right here. Hits into double plays. That's a bad thing to do in baseball. If you hit into a double play, that's bad, okay? Now, you'll notice that the guys who hit into double plays, they got a positive number, which means they win more games. Now, that's counterintuitive. So if you have something in your model that's counterintuitive, you better talk about it. You can still put it in your model. Let's say you have a super accurate model, but for some reason you got a real crazy variable in here. And you're like, Don, this is so insanely accurate, I want to keep this model exactly as it is. That's fine, but you better tell George Steinbrenner, hey, look, George Steinbrenner, we got a crazy thing in here, and I know about it, and I'm going to keep it in the model for this reason. That's what they do in the real world. If George Steinbrenner notices that on his own and it's not in your write-up, you're going to get fired, okay? So this is how you're doing this. We're not going to be writing this from an academic standpoint. You're going to be telling this to the boss because he's about to make some decisions about the New York Yankees that might be worth billions of dollars. So you're going to have to prove to him that you've done all of the work on this. Let's see. So this is what Goofus does. So Goofus and Gallant. Goofus does this and doesn't do anything. He doesn't do any analysis. Talk about your final equations. Conclusions, this is what Gallant does. Gallant has a good conclusion and Goofus has a bad conclusion. Okay? Give me your code. You don't have to, but you might want to put your code in here. The reason why you want to do that is because if there's a problem, if I see your code, I might be able to figure out what you did and give you more points, okay? So I'm just saying putting your code in is a good thing. The last thing you're going to do, and in fact, you might want to do this also at the very top of your thing, is bingo bonus points. Because we have bonus points in this class, don't just say, oh, throw an R program in there and not tell me about it. I'm grading 50 of these things and I'm under a time crunch. If I don't see that R code, you're not getting the points. So you're going to have to go out there and say, hey, Don, I did this in R and I did something with decision trees. I think I deserve, and then tell me what you did, tell me where I can find it in your homework, and then tell me how many points you think you've deserved for it, okay? If you think that you did something worth 30 points, and I'm like, I see 5 points worth, I'm like, well, obviously I've missed something. If I just see 5 points, I'm going to throw 5 on and move along. But if you tell me, hey, I've got 30 points, and it's over here, I know what to look for. Now, if you guess wrong, and I think, well, it's 30, and I say, well, that's really 25, or I might say, well, I think that's worth 40. I might give you 40. But ballpark it for me so I know what I'm looking for. It makes grading it a lot easier, okay? So
We've got a question.
Okay, tell me the question, Terry.
The question is, are the bingo bonus submissions meant to be part of the same deliverable or separate set of files?
I have students do it either way. I prefer you to, if nothing else, tell me where the bonus points. I like it when you put the bonus point of what you did at the top of your PDF file. Just say at the very top, here's your bingo bonus. Tell me where to find them. Sometimes a student will put the R routines and stuff in a separate file. Sometimes he puts it in the same. Everybody does this different. I'm not here to play gotcha, okay? Try to just think of it this way. Put this stuff together in a way that makes it easy for me to find it, okay? And there's no one right answer, but just think, if I were Don and I was grading 50 of these things, what would be easy for me? I've never gone over and screamed at a student for putting it in a separate file or unattractive margins or this or they didn't use the APA format or MLA. I don't care about that stuff. Okay, I'm not trying to hammer students for something like that. I'm just trying to. What I want is a professionally analyzed data set. That's what I'm looking for. So does that answer the question of the student, or we got other students or other questions?
That's the only question thus far.
Okay, I see a Blue Jeans chat message. What was their question there?
There's a yes, thank you.
Okay,
So
let's see. Okay, so let's see. We've got that message in a bottle template. I got the first 2 chapters of the textbook. That's because some students, it's on back order occasionally, so I was able to get the first 2 chapters. If you want to read it, like I said, it's up to you. I want you to get out of this class what you want to get. If you're a person that likes theory, there's a lot of theory in here. If you prefer, and you probably have already heard this, I think word gets around it's a pretty tight community here at Northwestern, but my approach to doing analytics is this. What you learn in a classroom is kind of like going into a boxing arena, okay? They teach you how to box, and you go in there, and it's a very well understood, a very rigid rules. You got a referee, you got boxing gloves on, you know the guy's not going to kick you because it's boxing, and that's what it is. In the real world, you're not in a boxing arena anymore. What happens is you get a real data set, and what you get now is like it's a back alley street fight. Okay, that's what real world analytics is like. This is what I used to work in the banking world, building models and insurance. And now what I do at SAS is I go around and I kind of work with financial service companies building models. So this is kind of what it's like in the real world. Now, the nice thing is there's good and bad. The good thing is you got to build models that are predictive, and they have to make sense, okay? So you got to, so what I always tell people is they'll say, well, Don, should I do this? And I go, my answer to every question about analytics is, if it makes sense, you can try it. And if you get a good answer, you were right, okay? That's it. So that's how you have to approach this stuff. Now, also, so things, checking for things like, I don't know, do you have is your data, are your error terms random, or is there a pattern? Well, patterns are not good, because it means that if there's a pattern in your error terms, it means that there's more information you could get. But in the real world, people don't really check for that. What they check is my model better than doing nothing? Okay, yeah. So I'm making money. Great, let's go with it. And then we'll try to make the model better in the future. So they don't really worry about some stuff like that. But they also worry about the model making sense. So they worry about different things. They don't care about, heteroscedasticity. I can't even pronounce it. Heteroscedastic data. They don't care about that. But they do care if the guy who hits the most home runs is losing the most games. That's going to bother people. So you want your model to be accurate, and you want things to make sense. Also, I've got chapter 1 of the Ratner book. I'm not sure, is that still required in 410? Does anybody know? Because Chad Boddy was a big fan of this book, and I kind of like this first chapter because it talks about this mindset. It was created by a guy named John Tukey, and John Tukey came up with this idea that linear regression is really robust. It's very powerful, and even if you violate the assumptions of linear regression, you still get good answers. So you might want to read this. I think this is actually worth reading. And then another thing is SAS certification. One of our TAs, Raymond Andon, went and got SAS certified, and he put all of his experiences in this document. So if anybody wants to get a SAS certification, which it's really is a valuable certification, it's well respected, Raymond put something down for you. So this is worth having. So does anybody have any questions so far? We'll move along. We'll just sort of go faster at this point. Nothing?
No new questions.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see. Here's the other thing. What I do is I keep recordings. So, okay, so I've already posted. So if you click on this guy here, so if you click on recordings, now these guys are grayed out. I'll make them visible if you want, but I try not to overload you guys with information. So, I can make these visible anytime you want, but right now I've just made this one visible, OLS regression. And if I click on this guy, I've got links to Adobe Connects of previous sync sessions that I did about the Moneyball problem. So especially these early ones, because what I did was, in this case, I actually took the data set and I started building it. Okay, well, actually, no, I started it up here. So I started building a model. This would be a great way to get started. Just watch this thing. Now, you guys have already probably figured out I like to talk. So some of these things go on for like 2 hours. Okay, I'm sorry. But, you'll fast forward, find out what you're looking for. And then after a while, I started even putting the code that I wrote. So you don't have to take notes. Just download the code, and that gives you a nice starting off point. So, this is a great way to get started on your problem, is to watch some of these videos. So do I have any questions on that?
Not yet.
Okay, great. So let's go back a little bit. So I've got these recordings. I also have this. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to have I call it office hours, and I'll try to do that once a quarter, or not once a quarter, once every unit. So usually I'll do it the end of week 2. And I'll get in there, and I recommend that you guys start now. Don't wait around, because if by the end of week 2, you'll have intelligent questions to ask. You'll say, I'm having trouble on this, and I tried this. Try lots of stuff. And the other thing is, make use of the discussion boards and post stuff. I mean, say, look, I'm having problems. I'm coming up with weird results. Work with other students and exchange ideas. That's the best way to learn. Help other people, learn from other people. That's what I recommend. And of course, I'm always available, and so is Raymond, and so is Brian. But around week 2 of each unit, I'll have office hours, and then you guys can ask me anything, and I'll try to I'll hopefully be able to answer your questions. Also, I teach a section of 498, which is the capstone. Okay, so sometime in the quarter, I have a thing, usually once, maybe twice, depends on the schedule. I'll have what I call show and tell. And show and tell is I'll have my 498 students will say, I'm going to present a 10-minute, it's kind of like a TED Talk, and they'll say, I'm right now working with mapping software on how to, take data and map it to a zip code. And they'll show every student how to do it for 10 minutes. And I was doing it for 498, and then some of my 411 students said, well, can we sit in on it? And I went, yeah, I guess so. So if you click on this, this is something that might be worth watching. You don't get tested on it, but I've got the videos, and, students, and sometimes the 411 students even present, and I'll have somebody like, I had a student who was worked in at Microsoft, and he was working with, right here. I had a student talk about Microsoft Azure, and I had somebody else talk about, where was it? Was working with Watson and GitHub and R Shiny and all sorts of stuff. These are, just kind of look through this stuff. Whenever you're bored, don't walk out of this class just learning the basics of the material. There's so much out here. Poke around in here and get information. I mean, there's a lot to learn in this class. I mean, a lot of opportunities. Getting an A is an easy thing in this class. The thing you want to do is you want to walk out of here knowing about decision trees and R and Python and other tools. You really want to, push yourself in this class. Also, what I did was I record my 498 students their final projects, and I invite you guys get to sit in there and listen if you want. I'll tell you when they occur, but also I record them and I post them here. So if you guys want to know what a final project looks like in 498, you know what? This is what it looks like. So you can watch a couple of these things. Find one that interests you and watch it. Also, occasionally I get a guest speaker, and if I get a guest speaker, I record it, and you can watch that as well. So this is some other material that may or may not be helpful in the class, but it's worth, poke around in this stuff, and if something catches your eye, watch it. Let's see. Let's go over to Unit 1 real quick. I've got some reading, from the textbook. I just say this is what you can read. And then if you look, we've got quizzes. So if you read Chapter 1 of the textbook, here's the quiz for Chapter 1. And then Chapter 2. And I've got these quizzes. And again, the quizzes I have, I want to say I've got 300 or more points in quizzes. And they're true and false and multiple choice. You're better off doing it now when it's fresh in your mind, but I get students who wait till the very end of the quarter. That's probably not good because you're going to forget. But here's something that you're also going to want to do is I've got some notes that I wrote. And these notes, a lot of students seem to like them. So they're PowerPoint notes. So I click on this guy, and let's see what happens. So if I click on this guy, let's just open him up. So I just got some real, simple examples to explain what's going on. I've got, for example, I'm saying, well, if you want to write a proc regression in SAS, this is the syntax. Okay, fine. You've known that from 410. But then I go, by the way, there's a million ways to do everything in SAS. So if you want to use proc GLM, then this is the syntax. And then if you do GenMod, this is the syntax. And you go, well, why do I care? Well, you probably don't, but sometimes you'll go somewhere and you'll see somebody use proc GLM instead of proc regression. Why? I don't know, but they will. And then if you're familiar with the syntax of this stuff, it makes you more valuable wherever you go. And besides, you get bonus points. So try doing these, don't just restrict your use of the tool to like one thing. Try lots of different things. So, I'll give you the syntax, and this is what the output looks like, and this is how to interpret the output. I just sort of walk through this stuff, and these aren't all that long, but I sort of walk through the very basics of everything you need to know on these, on some of the material. And then, of course, if I have any code, I will give you the SAS code, or if there's an Excel file, I'll give you that as well. So these things are kind of worth reading as these PowerPoints. And they're worth keeping them, just as a handy reference later on in your life. Let's see, what other fun stuff do we need to know? Here's the homework assignment. Let's take a real quick look at that. Oh, I sent out the link to the Kaggle competition. We'll share that with you in just a moment. What you have to do for the assignment is as follows. You're going to download the instructions. They're right here. Here's the data dictionary, and here's your data set. So I've got the data set. This is the data set that you're going to build your model on. You're going to score this guy, and this is what you're going to be submitting to Kaggle as a scored data set. This is what it looks like. I have one with random numbers. I'll show you what it looks like. Let's open this guy up. This is as a CSV file. This is what you're going to submit to Kaggle. You're going to have team number 9, I predict they're going to win 30 games. Team number 10, I predict they're going to win 158 games. So this is what you're going to submit to Kaggle. You're going to build the model with this data set right here, moneyball.csv. And you can see that this guy here is team number 1. He won 39 games. And, this is all the information. You see, I've got some missing values in here. So you're going to have to do something with these missing values for some of these. And I have some of my notes talk about how to do that. And, of course, post stuff on the discussion boards. We can talk about how do you handle missing values. And once you build your predictive model, you're going to come over here, and you're going to take this data set, and this is data that you've never seen before, and you're going to score this. So you can see team number 9, this is what they look like, and you're going to predict how many wins this guy's going to have, and team 10. So this is kind of how you do. You build your model, you score this guy, and then you submit this guy to the Kaggle competition. And then you're going to give me a write-up. And, this is just basically what we're going to be doing for this guy. Also, I have a bonus problem as well. It's going to be for an insurance data set where you're going to predict if a guy crashes his car, how much money are you going to make? So that's right here. Nope, right here. So there you're just going to, you don't even have to do a write-up. You just build a model and submit it. The Kaggle competition hasn't been open for this one yet. I ran into a technical problem. Terry, I had a question. Could you tell me what the question was?
What is the random.csv used for again?
This one right here. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back. The random is to show you what it's got to look like. So this guy right here, Moneyball test. So what I'm saying is you build a model with the moneyball.csv. So you build that guy. Then you take this guy and you use the model you created and you score this guy. Okay? So are you following that part right there?
Yes.
Okay. And then you're going to create a new file once you score this. The only thing you need to do to score, to hand into the Kaggle competition, is this guy right here. You will say, team number 9, I predict he's going to win 30 games. Now, the reason why this is random is I don't want you to just copy this and submit it. These are random numbers. I rolled dice to get these answers. So this is nothing more than to show you what you got to hand in. Does that make sense to you?
Another yes.
Okay, great. So we'll show you what the Kaggle is in a minute, but we're trying this new this quarter, and hopefully it's not going to be a disaster, but we're going to try Kaggle because I think students will like that because you get instantaneous feedback. What happens is sometimes I get students and they make a mistake in their scoring program, and all of a sudden they get like, they go, gosh, I think my model is great, and then they get like the worst, you know, theirs is worse than a random number generator, and they're all really upset about that. Well, yeah, this at least, if you've got a problem, you're going to know it real fast. So anyways, you know, we have some other, let me go back here. So then some other stuff that I have here, and I give you bonus point opportunities. Like, for example, you can do some hand calculations here where you get, you know, I give you this insurance, this is an insurance problem right here, and what you're going to do is just build a real quick and dirty model, submit it to Kaggle, and at the end of the 3 weeks, you know, whoever can beat the, you know, the benchmark model gets some points. Also, I've got some hand calculations here. You can do those, and I walk through it in the notes exactly how to do these things. But it's a valuable skill to know. So if you do it, you can get some points. And this one is really valuable. I really hope everybody tries this. It should take you no time at all. But what this one is I went and got my students from the first quarter, and this is what happened. I had this is what their reported adjusted R-squared value was. Now, this was before I used Kaggle, so I had a different error metric. But I had a student who had a 28 adjusted R-squared, and the lower your score, the better. Okay, so this was the score was how it was your error. So I had a student with this adjusted R-squared, and then when I scored him on my, because I have a secret holdout data set, and when I scored him, he got a 36. 36 being the lower the better. This guy got a 29 and he had a 75. This guy had a 30 and he had 122. So this guy had a horrible model. So what I'm doing in this is I'm saying, listen, see if your adjusted R-squared, does adjusted R-squared, is it a good indicator to see how your model is going to perform on new data? Some students say yes, some students say no. I don't care. I just want you to analyze it and come to your own conclusion. That's what I want you to do. And it's worth 10 points, and everybody who does it is glad that they did it. So I'm just saying these are, I put these little points out there as ways to, you know, you do 10 points here, 20 points there, and they start adding up in this class. So, and also I've designed the class that sometimes your first homework, you come back and out of 250 points, you get 40. And you're like, whoa, I don't expect that. You know, your model was a disaster, you did a horrible write-up, and you get a horrible, but the point is, in this class, you can get hammered on one homework and still do fine because there's so many opportunities to get the points back. But you get hammered on a second one, it's starting to be like sprinting through a marathon. You don't want to do this. I'll give you the feedback. I'll say, boy, you know, your write-up was like 3 pages long and everybody else's was like 30 pages and you know, your model was a disaster. So, you know, I'll give you the feedback and stuff, but don't get disheartened if you get a bad grade, because a lot of you will not be used to this approach to doing a write-up. It takes some getting used to. By the end of the quarter, everybody's going to be ace in this. But that's why the bonus points are so important, okay? Let's see other fun things. I'll also post examples of students' homeworks. Like what I'll do is I'll say, these were really great homeworks from past students. So after this, you hand it in, I'll show you what some good ones look like. And every now and then I'll say, hey, can I keep yours for future students? And some students say yes, some students say no, it's up to you. But I'll give you examples of good students' homeworks. Let's see about other stuff. Oh, all hands on deck paper. This is again from 498. Every now and then I make them all have to write a quick position paper on some topic like Hadoop or this or that. And some of them are pretty good. So I get there. Some of the students give me their permission. I zip them up in a file and I put them out here. That's worth looking at. So this is kind of a class in general. Let me just show you one other thing. This is Kaggle. And how many people are not familiar with Kaggle? Terry, can you type a no if you don't know what Kaggle is?
One no. Second, third, fourth, fifth.
Wow. Okay.
No's.
Okay. So here's what you're going to do, guys. Don't panic. Okay? So it's www.kaggle.com. And that's what I look like, guys. Okay. So what happens is I've sent you earlier today the link. And this is new. I'm doing this for the first time. So I don't know if this is going to work or not. So we're going to try this. But what happens is this is the Moneyball project. So if we click on this guy, you're going to register for this competition. And what you do is, I've got some data sets here. So you would say, you grab the data right here, and this is the same data sets that you can download. But what you're going to do is you're going to give me you're going to create a data set that's going to look something like this. Remember this guy right here? You create a data set that looks like that, where it says team number 9 had 42 wins or whatever. And then you're going to make a submission. So you click on this guy here, and it will give you a window, and you basically upload, I understand and accept and all that. And then basically you upload your data set, and then Kaggle will score it for you. And he'll say, your score was, I don't know, let me see if I have, okay, here's the leaderboard, and it will post the leaderboard. So this is the perfect model right here. This is Raymond Andon. His model was the best one I've ever had. He got an error score of 11.8, where 0 is perfect. This is my model. If you can beat my model, you get a lot of bonus points. If you can beat Raymond's, you get a lot of bonus points. Okay? The worst possible model is this guy here. If you make every bad decision, you would get a bad score of 93. If you randomly pull names out of a hat, you'd get a score of 44.9. If you just took and assume everybody wins 81 games, where 81 is the average because there's 162 games in the season. So if everybody wins 81, if you guess that, you would have a score of 16.4. Our other TA got a score of 14. Mine was a 12. Raymond got an 11. I give you bonus points for beating me. What makes me happy is when students are able to defeat my model, okay? It's not an ego thing to be the best for me. I didn't in any way, I'm not playing dead for you guys. This is the best model I was able to do with this data set. So if you beat me fair and square, and I'm really happy. It makes me happy when it happens. But I'm not going to roll over and play dead. You got to knock me off the hill yourself, okay? So what will happen is Kaggle will give you a score. He'll score half the data, so you get an idea of where you are. But when I grade, I turn it on and I grade all 100% of the data. So you will, you might say, well, gosh, I'm in 15th place, and then all of a sudden, when I grade, you end up, when I turn it on and it grades all 100% of the test data, you might get a score of, you might move up or down some spots, but you'll have a pretty good idea of where you are. I had a question, Terry. Could you tell me what the question was?
Is it a one-time or multiple-time submission?
You can do as many as you want. I think Kaggle limits you to 2 or 3 a day. But you can do this, and I think that when you're done, Kaggle will tell you what all your scores were, and then you can say, I want you to grade this, and you get to check a box to say which one to grade. Usually people will grade the best score that they have, but if you think maybe second or third best score is better, you get to select that, okay? So I'm hoping that this is going to cause you guys to do better, because I've had students who, like I said, they didn't realize that they had mistakes in their programs, and then they get a model that's worse than random, this guy right here. And that's not, if you turn in something like that to the New York Yankees and your model is worse than rolling dice, the Yankees are going to lose billions of dollars. So I'm not real sympathetic when I get a model like that. I understand mistakes happen, but they can't happen in this world, okay? You got to give me a model that is going to be, that you tested. So I'm trying to push you guys into the swimming pool and making you swim a little bit. So anyways, this is what we're going to do. I sent you a link to register with Kaggle. So I think the link is right here in the announcements. I just sent it out before class. So you go to Kaggle competitions, and I think this is what you have to use. I'm making this up as I go along. I would be really appreciative if somebody who's familiar with Kaggle would go out there and try to submit something, even if it's just a random thing, to see if this works. So if somebody could do that for me, I would be really, really grateful. I want to know, but you have to first register with Kaggle and then send me your name and then register for this competition. And as soon as I get the other guy up and running, the bingo bonus one, I'll send you that link as well. So do I have any questions at all about Kaggle at this point?
So Kaggle is for
go ahead.
The homework?
So what was the question again, please?
So the Kaggle site is the mechanism for submitting the homework, or is there a separate write-up that has to be done as well?
Well, okay, the write-up, there's a write-up that you submit to Canvas like you always do, okay? However, you will also submit a scored data set, and the scored data set will go to Kaggle, and when I'm grading you, I'm going to read your write-up, and then I'm going to go over to Kaggle and see what your score was.
Okay.
So is anybody, is this scaring anybody away at this point? Is it, give me some feedback, people. We're doing some new stuff here.
So does it make sense to go to Kaggle, do that first, and then do the write-up afterwards?
You can do anything you want. I'm trusting you guys to do what you want to do. If it were me, I'll give you my advice. I would start building a model instantly and start submitting it, and then see what kind of scores you get. and then maybe do the write-up towards the end. I think my personal opinion is give me a model and then start doing the write-ups. That's what I would do, but everybody's different. So I don't want to tell you how to do this. You got to solve this. You got to march to your own drummer, okay? Now, I saw here on Kaggle that I think Eric Lewis is ready to pounce, it says. Is that true? Is that true, Eric? Yep, Eric Lewis. Hey, Eric, would you try doing me a huge favor and see if you are able to submit something for me? I mean, just even if it's the benchmark random one, I don't care. I just would love and any students who can, in fact, that's the first thing I would do is try to register for Kaggle and submit the random data set just to see if you can do it. You should be able to get some kind of a score. And remember, everybody, and the other thing is, I really like it when students are very active on the discussion boards. I'm not the kind of person here who's like, you've put too much on there. I don't like it. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy who's like, sometimes students are like, I'm afraid to ask this question because maybe it's too much information. I have never gotten mad about what students post. I mean, if you're posting your homework solution, I might ask you to take it down, but I would rather err on the side of you helping another student or asking the question that you have. That's the best way to learn in this class, is to interact. If you're just going to be like never logging in and never on these boards, you're really cheating yourself. And the other thing is, I'm really a big fan of trying new techniques. I love decision trees. Decision trees are great for fixing missing values. They're great for building predictive models. They're great for variable selecting. There's lots of stuff to do with decision trees. And when I see decision trees, it makes my heart skip a beat, and I give a lot of points for those. So I'm a big fan of those things. I saw some more chat questions. Let's see.
Yes, Eric says that he's been to the Kaggle site, he submitted, and he got a 44.
Oh, perfect. He should get the exact same, that should be the same score as, so let's take a look at the leaderboard. So the public leaderboard, see now, does everybody see how this works? Eric has one submission, and he submitted the random model, because I told you guys I gave you a random data set, right? Eric now is tied with random, okay? So, I'm guessing that Eric's going to do a better model, and he's going to start moving up the food chain. And
now we have a comment from Loretta as well, when you get a minute.
Okay, Loretta, what do you got for me?
It says, between random and your model is a range. How much of the grade will be determined by where we are in the range? That is, are we competing with one another for grades? And then also she writes, do our readings cover decision trees? I am excited to learn about them.
Decision trees are not covered in any of the readings. However, I've got some stuff on decision trees. I've got some, I'll show you that. Okay, let me ask you your first question. You're not competing with other students. You're competing with these gray bars. So if you give me a model that's worse than average, okay, your model should be better than George Steinbrenner saying everybody's going to win 81 games, okay? If you can't even beat that model, you're going to get 0 points, okay? So if you turn in this model, 44, you're going to get negative points because your model is worse than rolling dice, okay? I've never had a student do worse than the worst possible model, but boy, that's, there's always a first thing. So you're competing against these. So if you can defeat Brian, okay, you'll get full credit. If you can defeat me, you're going to get bonus points. And if you can defeat Raymond, you're going to get a lot of bonus points. Also, if you're somewhere between baseline and Brian, I'll probably give you, like, instead of 50 points, maybe 40 or 30 or something like that. I'll see where you are residing. But at this point, you gotta do better than, you're not competing against each other, but you're competing against these gray bars. Does that make sense? And since I'm doing this for the first time, I haven't decided where, what the cutoffs are. But the higher up this, the more you defeat these gray bars, the better. So now, as far as decision trees go, I'll show you what you want to know about those. Let's go over here. And decision trees are real simple, and I can talk about those all day long, but I do have a guest speaker. If you click on guest speaker, and you go down here, Don Wedding, overview on machine learning, clustering. Look at that, Don Wedding. I do a little talk on decision trees, and there you have it. So I got a little talk on them, but there's a lot of stuff on decision trees out there, and I talk about them all the time. And also, again, this would probably be the first place I would start on decision trees. But here's another thing. Angus software has decision trees in it. If you use Angus software, I think I've made an announcement about that. Let me see, where is it? Angus software. Okay, now I'm with SAS, and Angus contacted me. Now, they're a competitor of ours, and they said, can we give this to your class for free? And I said, yes, but do you know that I work for SAS and we're competitors? And they said, would you please not say bad stuff about our software? And I said, I will not say anything bad about your software because it's actually very good software. And I'm telling you guys, it's good software. The cool people use SAS, but Angus is good stuff, and it's free. I would recommend downloading this free license. It's going to be good for a year. It's got decision trees in here. It's got regressions. It's got neural networks. It's got all sorts of stuff in there. And if you use it, I give you bonus points for using Angus, and I give you bonus points if you use some decision trees. So you can double dip. So dive in here, folks. And then the neat thing is, once you figure out how to use Angus, you're going to do it on homework 2 and homework 3, and you're just going to be, raking these points in. So let's see other questions we have, or did I answer all of your questions, whoever was asking that? Whoops, I think I clicked share screen by mistake. Can you guys still see my screen?
It says you are sharing your screen, but it's tiny. It's a little icon almost.
Oh, okay. I think that's because you can see it all, right? Now you can?
Yes, now you can see it.
Great. Okay.
I had one question. For this first assignment, are we to just use regression, or we can use something other than regression?
Well, I want you to hand in, you can try other things, but you got to give me at least a linear regression model. But this class is really on generalized linear models, and believe it or not, a linear model is a special case of a generalized linear model. Here's what I would recommend. Before you start getting into these real exotic types of things like neural networks and stuff, what you're going to find out, and I'm going to tell you the truth here about the dirty secret about predictive modeling, is when I said it's like a street fight, it's a street fight, okay? And if you're in a back alley street fight, you ever watch one of those kung fu movies with Bruce Lee, and he like jumps up in the air and does a triple somersault and then kicks the other guy? And that's not the real world. The real world is you pick up a brick off the ground and you hit the other guy and you're going to win. It's that simple. So linear regression is simple, okay? And it's effective. It's been around for 200 years, and there's a reason for it, because it works. This other stuff that you try, like neural networks and support vector machines and gradient boosting, that stuff is fine, and sometimes it's pretty good. But 9 times out of 10, a good linear regression model is explainable, and it's just as good. So it's easy to do, it's explainable, and it's just as good. Now, if you do a linear regression model and then you say, hey, by the way, Don, I did a gradient boosting model, and I submitted it to Kaggle, and here's what I think the error differences were. Write about it in your report, put a big red box around it, tell me about it in your bingo bonus section, and I'll give you points for it. But you got to definitely give me a linear regression model, but try other stuff. Because when you try other stuff, you're going to start to begin to come to the conclusion that I want you to come to, which is that linear regression is really good. But again, and the other thing I want you to learn from this class is I might be wrong. I'm going to give you my opinion based upon years of experience, okay? And there's some validity to what I have to say, but believe it or not, I don't have all the answers. So some of the things I might tell you I will tell you what I think is true, but I might be wrong. So you're going to ultimately have to make up your own minds in the end. So does anybody else have questions about this, or?
No new questions yet.
Okay, no new questions. Because if not, guys, we're off to the races here. The only thing I have to do is update that syllabus with the correct dates.
Nothing new.
Nothing new. Do you guys want to adjourn for the night? Do we have any questions about the class in general? I will answer questions about statistics, SAS, the class. I'll give you, weather forecasting, political prognostication, affairs of the heart, whatever you guys got. I'm here. Wow, I've got a tough audience.
Just a thank you.
Okay, gang. Then I'm calling it a night here. Terry, I thank you for being my helper here.
Well, hope the check is in the mail.
Well, no, this was a volunteer position. This was an honorary position.
Okay.
Okay, and hopefully by the next time I do one of these think sessions, I'm going to be able to figure out how to turn my camera on.
Okay. Well, people are starting to check out, giving their thanks.
Okay. Well, I'm watching them check out. So Terry, you don't have to stay on for my benefit. I'll hang on for a few more minutes, people.
I am kind of wondering a little bit about the decision tree part. Does that have any bearing for this first assignment, or we're just going to do the linear regression and no decision tree for the first assignment?
No, you can use them. I mean, decision trees is like putting ketchup on a hamburger, okay? The hamburger is what we're doing. Decision trees will just allow you to do things like, some of the things you can do with a decision tree. You build a decision tree, you look at the variables that are used in the decision tree, and you go, okay, and then you put those into the regression. So you've used the decision tree to predict or to choose variables for a regression. You could use a decision tree to fix missing values. You could use it to look for interactions. There's lots of uses for it, but the regression is what you're doing. But I'm saying any way you can use a decision tree to make your model better is a great skill yes, Michael Young, I'm going to post this in the shells shortly. But so any use of a decision tree is what I'm going to give you points for, because it's gonna make your models better in the real world.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay. So I've still got 7 participants. I want to make sure that I get everybody's questions answered. Oh, it's Matthew Young. I thought it was Michael Young. I'm sorry, Matthew. And Liz Zimmerman was the only one who used a camera. Thanks a lot, Matthew. So I'm going to turn off the recording now.